Hello everyone, I declare the ordinary council meeting open at 6:01 p.m. Good evening. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on, the Whadjuk people. We would like to pay respect to the elders of the Noongar Nation, past and present, who have walked and cared for the land, and we acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contributions made to the life of this city and this region. And I invite you to bow your heads in prayer. Lord, we ask your blessing upon our city, our community and our council. Guide us in our decision-making to act fairly, without fear or favour, and with compassion, integrity and honesty. May we show true leadership and be inclusive of all, and guide the City of Wanneroo to a prosperous future that all may share. We ask this in your name. Amen. Just an announcement to ensure that everyone in the chambers tonight is aware that the audio proceedings of tonight's meeting will be live broadcast online, with the exception of matters discussed behind closed doors. That broadcast will remain available via the City of Wanneroo website following the conclusion of the meeting. Item 1 is attendances as per the record. Item 2, we have the apologies and leave of absence. We have a leave of absence from Councillor Baker from the 11th of July to the 31st of August. And we also have, I understand, Mr Acting CEO, an apology from Councillor Newen.
Yes, Deputy Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 3, public question and statement time. The following rules apply to public question and statement time. Public questions and statements should only relate to the business of the local government and should not be of a personal statement or opinion. Only questions relating to matters affecting the local government will be considered at the council meeting, and only questions that relate to the purpose of the meeting will be considered at a special council meeting. Questions may be taken on notice and responded to after the meeting. Questions may not be directed at specific council members or city employees. Questions are not to be framed in such a way as to reflect adversely on a particular council member or city employee. First priority is going to be given to persons who are asking questions relating to items on the current council meeting agenda, and second priority will be given to public statements. Only public statements regarding items on the council agenda under consideration will be heard. Each person seeking to ask a question or make a statement may address the council for a maximum of 3 minutes. We do have a range of questions that have been submitted in writing and they have been responded to. And we also have a range of questions from members of the public in attendance in the gallery this evening. So if I could ask to come to the lectern, Mr Havel. Yep, if you could please come to the lectern and ask your question. And just your name and address, full name and address for our records, please.
My question relates to the proposed amendment number 172 to previous two. The purpose of this question is to ensure that my submission to the city on the amendment in writing on 4th of April is not ignored. And the essence of the submission, which I briefly state here, is this. Why is the southern portion of Drovers Place precinct always unfavourably treated compared to the central and western portion of the precinct? I base my question on 67 years of experience as a ratepayer. In that time, the only decisions favourable to us as owners of lots 10 and 105 has always been upholding of our appeals to the Minister of Lands or Department of Lands against the decision of the City of Wanneroo. Why is this pattern perpetuated in this latest amendment? Does the City of Wanneroo only listen to land developers and politicians?
Mr Dixon.
Thank you, and through you, Deputy Mayor, Administration has provided a response in writing to Mr Havel's question.
Could I please ask if you could speak up a bit?
Sorry,
Miss. All the gadgets I get,
Sorry, Mr Havel, we have provided a written response to your question, and that is provided. I'm happy if the Deputy Mayor wishes me to read the response to Mr Havel, or to accept it in writing that we've already provided.
Mr Havel, have you received the written response to your question?
Only the advice that it has been received, but I have got the minutes and I see the answer there.
Mr Dixon, if you could read the answer out then, please.
Okay, thank you. And through you, Deputy Mayor. So the purpose of Amendment 172 is to align District Planning Scheme Number 2 with the State Government's model provisions, which aim to standardise all planning schemes across the state. As required by the relevant planning legislation, more strategic or complex land use planning changes are intended to be dealt with by the preparation of our new local planning strategy and our new planning scheme number 3. This amendment does not seek to change the existing subdivision land use, permissibility and development requirements for the special residential zone, which applies to the subject land. In aligning the scheme with model provisions, the City has sought to keep the process as simple, fair and equitable as possible for all landowners by retaining the existing development requirements for special residential areas to maintain the status quo. This includes the retention of existing and long-standing rules in the planning scheme regarding lot sizes, vegetation retention, land uses and building envelopes. Investigation of further development opportunities in any area or zone of the City has not formed part of the scope of the amendment. Notwithstanding, the City is aware that some landowners are seeking to further diversify through new development types, land uses and/or subdivision in this or other parts of the City. These more strategic land use planning considerations will be explored through the preparation of our new local planning scheme and our new Scheme 3, which are currently under development and will be advertised for public comment. Landowners also have the option of preparing individual scheme amendments at any time, which will be assessed on their planning merit based on the prevailing and future desired development context of the locality. Final decisions in relation to these amendments are made by the Minister for Planning.
Thank you, Mr Dixon. That was the response to your question.
Okay.
Thank you.
No.
Yeah, and Mr Havel, we have that. Mr Dixon's advised me that he's more than happy to speak directly with you regarding your concerns.
I can understand you now, but only because I'm watching you lips and hearing.
Well, we're here to help. And Mr Dixon's well and truly available to talk with you out of session with your concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to miss it this week. Heather Cole. As always, Heather, just name and address for the records. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heather Cole, 51 Littleham Loop, Quinns Rocks. I'm here with a couple of questions. Well, I've got more, but we'll start with 2. Regarding CS03-0722, the Quinns Rocks Caravan Park. Why, in the expression of interest document that was sent out, where it clearly states that no late expression of interest would be accepted for further assessment, are you now considering one that was late and talking about entering into a private treaty with a company that hasn't actually been formed yet? Where is the due diligence?
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the question. The negotiations were not a formal tender. They were an expression of interest to identify parties for the City to negotiate further with, really to test the market and find out what interest there was in the market. The time period was specified to, I guess, focus the parties' minds to ensure that submissions were received within a time frame. Ultimately, we received one in that time frame, then we received one further that both have been reviewed and have been the subject of the report this evening. In terms of the private treaty negotiations and the company to be established, the purpose of the report this evening is to select a candidate that would be subject to further investigation, further due diligence, and further negotiation of documents, such as a lease, and would need to come back to council for a decision in the end. So the due diligence, a level of due diligence has already occurred, and further due diligence would still happen in terms of once we know what the company structure is, who the directors are, the shareholdings, all those sort of things, that would be reflected in the final recommendation of council in due course.
Okay. Next question. With all the years of community consultations with the local Queensman residents and the same view of the residents being put to councillors and the City of Wanneroo staff regarding the future of the site, do you understand why they are losing confidence in you actually making a decision on the subject that fits with what they have said when neither of the current proposals appear to residents to have reflected what they want or indeed the brief given to any applicants?
Probably the best way to respond to that particular question is that if council was not aware, it is now.
That's not really a very good answer.
Do you have a next question, Mrs. Cole?
I will actually leave those for somebody else to ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from, or questions from Vicky Jenkins.
Good evening. Vicky Jenkins, 36 Ocean Drive, Queen's Rocks. This is regarding, well, pertains to the Caravan Park. As council and residents are aware, we are having a parking problem in Queen's Rocks. Fred Stubbs car park is to upgrade. If in the end we end up with less parking in that car park, should council give more thought and consideration to decisions they are making and recognise needs of residents and locals who want to visit the beach in their car? Thank you.
Mr. Acting CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. For the Fred Stubbs car park redevelopment or reconstruction, we have commenced some prelim work at this point in time. We're also doing the parking assessment on that one. And depending upon the assessment, we'll identify the number of bays required at that site. And then we'll determine can those bays be provided at that particular site, or we need to look at alternative options.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. The next question is from Ken Tasco. Welcome, Ken. It's a bit of an obstacle course.
I made it here. My name's Ken Tasker, 6 Beaumarks Court, Mindarie, and I'm here to talk about or ask questions about the Caravan Park, as you could imagine. I suppose the overriding question is to councillors tonight that will council consider deferring the vote because of apparent uncertainty of what is the recommended applicant is going to come through with, and ask the community whether they would be interested in having a third option, a third idea, instead of a glamping or a CMCA application, to have it as public open space. Because a public open space is a rare commodity, and it's something that would enhance the area immediately next to the site that we're talking about, site 211. I would comment also, if I'm allowed to make a comment, about the fact that I submitted 10 questions, which was probably a bit foolish to expect 10 questions to be accepted, but I thought at the time that it might be divvied up at this point in time. I wrote 10 questions and I got 10 answers, but I only got those 10 answers about 10 minutes ago. And for me to digest the responses from council is really quite unreasonable. So when I look at a couple here, number one, for example, I commented that it's been 10 years waiting for this. How long is it going to be before something happens? And my answer is, I don't really care, as long as our community gets something that it really wants and not something that it doesn't. And if I went through all of these, for example, my question number 4, the city has not investigated in installing a playground. I didn't ask that. I put playground/public open space because there's quite a difference there. Community engagement was my question number 5. And I'm saying to you, would you consider that it has been advertised widely? Because I only found about this, and this is why I'm here, after all these years, Deputy Mayor. I only found out about this about 2 weeks ago, because we have no longer community newspapers. And I think the city needs to address that, because look at the small number of people here that are going to be talking about the Caravan Park, which is of immediate importance to the residents of Mindarie and Quinns. The CMCA, I don't know how diligently, and just with respect, their application was dealt with. I did not get a feeling that council or us realised what an RV was, because I got the feeling that in the chat that was on Facebook, RVs are not just motorhomes. They are caravans, they are fifth wheelers, they are camper vans, the whole spectrum. And this CMCA's got 70,000 members. They're not a tin pot company, and they are the root of tourism in that particular field. And I think this is their first time into Western Australia. I guess in opposition to traditional caravan parks to provide low cost, because if you've booked a caravan park lately, it's very expensive. What else was there? As I say, it's very difficult to process something that is about 10 minutes old. I just think that really, again, I'll ask the question, would you please defer any fixed decision tonight and ask the community whether it will be interested in public open space? Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Ken. I think the answer to that... Thank you, Ken. The answer to that question is the item will be decided by council later on this evening. Thank you. The next question is from Tanya Henkel.
Good evening.
Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you. My name's Tanya Henkel and I live at 10 Rochester Drive, Mindarie. Thanks for the opportunity to ask my question. Firstly, may I thank the councillors who have engaged with this very important subject and have responded to the many emails that have been coming to them over the last couple of weeks. So my question relates also to parking. At the 5th of July council briefing, it was noted that a car parking study will be undertaken of the whole precinct, including obviously the busy patrolled shark-netted beach, which attracts high visitation during summer months, the 2 restaurants, the community centre, the Surf Lifesaving Club. Given that council are already aware of the use of the overflow car park, and given that council is very aware of the local community's attitude to retaining the bush forever land and would not stand for any encroachment into it for any development, including car parking, Wouldn't it be sensible to await the results of the car parking study prior to making any decisions about the future of this land?
Mr Acting CEO.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I think both things can run concurrently. While we're doing the study, that will identify any parking shortfall. While this process, should Council make a decision tonight, that can be progressed at the same time.
Could I just ask a follow-up question to that? Surely if the lease has been entered into over that subject land, then it's no longer available for use as overflow parking.
If I can just also point out, that is not under consideration this evening, because all we're talking about this evening is the result of an expression of interest process. The lease itself is not under consideration, and it is some period of time away.
Good. Okay, and I'd just like to state my support for Ken's proposal for option 3. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question we have is from Sinead Barron. Hopefully I got the name pronunciation correct.
It is correct, thank you. I'm Sinead
Excellent.
Barron, 130 Ocean Drive, Queens Rocks. I've got a few questions about the Caravan Park.
Sure.
How often is the Queensman Community Centre used for events and functions? And have you considered if having another venue in close proximity will affect the city's revenue?
Debbie, can you respond to that?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't have the figures in front of me in terms of the usage of the community centre, so I'd need to take that question on notice.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. Why was the Queens Rocks Advisory Group told on Monday the 27th of June that a report would be coming to the Council in 3 months' time, and then received an email 4 days later on the Friday the 1st of July saying that it would be the 5th of July, which then gave very little time for them to consult with the community?
Ms Jennings?
Thank you. Through the chair, I think what we actually said is within the next 3 months. It did come a bit quicker than we thought because we actually wanted to, and it's in the report, try and speed up the discussion with the Surf Life Saving Club as well. So it was certainly within the 3 months.
Thank you.
I'm concerned about the dual-use footpath that runs past the old Caravan Park site. It's heavily used by locals walking dogs in groups, riding bikes and scooters with families. There will be noise and distractions, possibly interfering with user groups at the function centre. Have we still got priority use of the pathway, and has this dual-use pathway been considered in conjunction with the proposal?
Mr Greer?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for the question. The footpath is outside the boundary of Lot 211. It's not. There's no proposal to close the footpath or build into the footpath. The footpath would still be there, and it's a public path that would remain.
And how will that interact with the people on site? How's that going to go down?
Yeah, you just direct your questions through the chair. Mr Greer, do we have any basis to provide a response, or would you prefer to take that on notice?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll provide a response to the extent I can, in that the proposal is still at an early stage. The designs that are shown in the report this evening are preliminary designs that need to be progressed to a final kind of concept stage. And in that sense, it's for the proponent, if it progresses, to show how they will use the site and how they manage that. The proponent, certainly both parties, but I think it's the recommended one we're talking about, is aware of the site, is familiar of the site and what's around it, and hasn't expressed any desire to, screen the area in a different way or anything like that. So I guess my answer at this preliminary stage is the proponent understands that and doesn't seem concerned by the fact there's a public path nearby.
Thank you, that's it.
Thank you. And we have a question from, and apologies if I'd get the surname Incorrect. Kelly Wheatcroft. And please just tell me, Kelly, if I didn't get the surname properly.
You did have to read my handwriting after all. It's Kelly Wheatcroft, 6 Stenner Street, Queens Rocks. My question is about the Queens Rocks Caravan Park, as you're probably well aware. In the expression of interest document, the development footprint has 2 options. The first being the historical caravan park footprint and the second being an expanded footprint. However, it does state it wouldn't be for the entire site. What confidence do we have that no expansion of that historical caravan park footprint will occur?
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And in answering the question, I'll just acknowledge that it is something that has been of a concern to the community. It was raised a number of times in the context of the September 2020 business case report to Council as well. The matter requires a lease approval. So if a party is selected as preferred, if it progresses to further negotiations, and if a lease is negotiated, that lease, including all the terms, like the footprint, the area, will need to come back for a council decision. So it'll be council to decide the footprint. What the both proponents have indicated so far is they see it as being in the current footprint, the old caravan park footprint. They're not seeking an expansion. And the fact that the community's view on it remains very clear would make me feel that's not going to change.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Greer. And can I just add on a personal note, from what I've spoken to and heard from councillors, there is absolutely no appetite whatsoever to increase the size of that footprint.
That gives me some confidence. However, I'm an engineer. I'm working on projects that regularly what gets presented in the expression of interest and what the final outcome of the project is are vastly different. So I'm still concerned, but thank you for your support.
At the end of the day, if there was any increase to the footprint, it would be coming through this body.
Thank you.
And I'd have to say, from my perspective, it would be over my dead body.
I'd like to hear that. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Not that I'd like to see that.
I don't know. The line is long and distinguished.
So thank you. My second question sort of tags onto Heather's a little bit. That in the expression of interest, one of the points in 1.4 of the development objectives was to have a reputable and proven operator and developer. Heritage WA don't seem to be established yet as a company, so how do we understand what their reputation is as an operator and developer of that site?
I think Mr Greer probably touched on that earlier, and that's part of the due diligence process. But Mr Greer, did you want to add a comment?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In this respect, appreciate that Heritage has put forward a proposal in that flag that they would set up a separate company to operate it. That's not unusual. And you would find a lot of businesses in hospitality and a lot of businesses in sort of hotels and accommodation would have separate legal entities for each of their investments. There's various reasons why that would be done. What I would say is that the parties that put forward Heritage in the sense of its prior involvement, Buckland Estate is an existing business. The business that it has in Bali is also an existing business, so it does have experience. It's just the company that will be operating this site, if it progresses to that stage, will be a different company. And as I indicated with the question earlier, the due diligence around how that's structured, directors, shareholdings, standing of the company, all this sort of things have to be worked out as we progress with further negotiation, further due diligence.
Thank you. I know in some of the assessment criteria, the traffic impact was one of the criteria. So without a traffic study having been conducted in the area, how have we assessed the traffic impact in this expression of interest?
Yep. Mr Acting CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think those kind of details will be considered as part of development approval should this matter progress to that level.
Okay, I just note that it's an assessment criteria, that's all. And I guess as a paid up member of the Queensman Surf Lifesaving Club and a former director of the board, should this development progress, what impact does that have on the surf club being able to expand its facilities into the surrounding area?
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and again, thank you for those questions. The first question around the criteria in the OI document. We obviously had a lot of criteria. Reviewing the document, and the public's had a chance to see that. There were lots of things we were asking for. Aspirationally, it would have been brilliant if every single one of them could have been achieved. Obviously, in a constrained site, there are limits on what people can propose and deliver, and the current proposals put forward, or expressions of interest that council are considering, that's what the market put forward. In terms of the traffic, look, there are aspects of it in terms of the fact they are indicating that visitors would be housed within the lot, without going into other areas. That will need to be explored further as we go through their further design. And as that progresses, we'll be able to show that more clearly in parallel with the traffic study. In terms of the surf club, and the second question, I personally have had a number of discussions with representatives of the surf club, as you probably know. I want, and the city certainly as a whole would want to find accommodation for everybody, because the surf club has been long supported. The city, even as recently as last year, approved a long-term lease for the surf club. So there's been long-term support and ongoing support. If a party is supported, I think one of the first actions would be to have them and whichever proponents supported to sit down together and work out that accommodation. The challenge we've had up until now is we haven't had a preferred party. So it's a case of knowing what the surf club wants, but not knowing, I guess, council's view on how the rest of the site is proceeding and being able to work those two things together. So sorry, that's probably a roundabout answer, but hopefully it gives you some understanding of what we've been trying to work to.
And one final question, if I may. The 50-year, 100-year coastal erosion projection runs right behind the current Portofino's layout, and the 100-year one runs behind the current parking area. I noticed last council meeting there was some reference to the structures would be within the design life of that coastal erosion. Are we saying that this facility would have a design life of less than 50 years so that it didn't fall into the ocean? Or is it anticipated to be beyond 50 years, and therefore how is the coastal erosion being considered?
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I suppose there's two parts to that. One is the structures being a lighter touch, as tents rather than brick and mortar are movable, and so there's not an assumption that you built something that has to be there for 50 years to recover your investment. The second part is we still have to negotiate a lease. We still have to finalise a term. The term would reflect that it is a lighter touch investment. They don't need to be there for 50 years. So I would expect we'd be looking at an arrangement that's probably more in the 10 to 20 year range, and therefore could be accommodated within future process lines that way. When the lease expires, we'd be able to review where the process lines are at that stage and whether it's appropriate to have any further arrangement beyond that.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the written list of questions. Is there anybody else in the audience who has any questions they'd like to ask? Mr Tasker? Now that looks like an easier path.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If tonight, when council votes for the Heritage WA application or expression of interest, if that fails, Deputy Mayor, if the council doesn't want to accept that expression of interest by Heritage WA, where do we go from there?
Dare I say that will be decided by council after the consideration of that item this evening.
Okay, and then if council felt that way, would then there be the opportunity to give a different option, given that it's 10 years since the original option was put to the public?
Well, again, I think that would be up to council to develop their position this evening, but my own personal view is that at that point it would be appropriate to go to the community engaged to see what their aspirations were for the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Any further questions? There being none, I declare public question time finished. We then move on to item 4. Item 4 is confirmation of the minutes. I need a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 14th of June 2022. Moved Councillor Civic, seconded Councillor Herridge. Councillors, if I could just ask you to record your vote. I declare that carried. We also have the minutes of the special council meeting held on the 28th of June 2022. Moved Councillor Councillor Rose, seconded Councillor Civic. And again, councillors, if I could just ask you to record your votes. I declare that carried unanimously, both of those items. We now move on to item 5, which is announcements by the Deputy Mayor without discussion. There are 2. Councillors, I'm delighted that we are joined this evening by a very special guest, a local resident from Wanneroo, great suburb, can I say, and a Noongar artist who created the piece you see on the wall, which is titled Knitting Wanneroo. And this is created by Miss Courtney Hill. It's fitting that Courtney joins us this evening to celebrate her artwork following the city's recent NAIDOC Week celebrations. I'm sure that everyone visiting the Chambers this evening can see the work. It's an impression or a larger copy of the painting that is down in the forum, the fora downstairs, just as you enter the building. NAIDOC Week is a time for all Australians to come together to celebrate the rich history, diverse cultures and achievements of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. It's an opportunity for us all to learn about, reflect upon and acknowledge the unique contributions that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have made and continue to make to our community, and celebrates Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the oldest continuing culture on earth. The City of Wanneroo is very proud of its Noongar Whadjuk heritage. Through the Knitting Wanneroo, Courtney has translated thousands of years of local storytelling into an artwork that takes people on a journey through the City of Wanneroo's Aboriginal history and brings the unique stories of the region's significant Aboriginal heritage to life. Courtney's intention in creating the painting was to encourage the community to come together to learn about, understand and celebrate Aboriginal culture, and builds on the conversations around reconciliation. In her own words, Knitting Wanneroo helps put Aboriginal culture at the forefront of people's minds and tells the shared story of the whole Wanneroo community. We are deeply honoured that Courtney created this incredible artwork for our community to share her interpretations of the story of Wanneroo. And if I could pass on both mine and the Council's deep gratitude and thank you to Courtney, I'd like to invite Courtney to join me in front of the work and just to take a quick photo if I can. Please come down, Courtney. Thank you, Courtney. It's greatly appreciated. And and I just mentioned to Courtney that I had a discussion with the CEO and thought that to do it justice, it needed to be held in and hung in the preeminent location for the City of Wanneroo in the Chambers. And it took us a while to take those photos because I think they were trying to make me look better. We also have, and it's with great pride, we also have the outcome of the 2022 Local Government Professionals Australasian Management Challenge, the WA round. I'm excited to share with you that the team Wanneroo, oh gosh, I'm going to get this wrong, I'm sure. Wanneroo Kurulini Kora Ye Miller won the WA round last month. Competing against 11 other teams from across the state, Wanneroo was challenged to navigate through a range of complex tasks and scenarios in a pressure cooker environment. The team will now go on to represent WA and Adelaide at the national level at the end of August, competing against other state winners from around Australia and New Zealand. Led by mentor of the Assets Directorate, Harminder Singh, who's our acting CEO at the moment, the team continually demonstrated great spirit, resilience, fellowship and innovative thinking since joining the program earlier this year. Congratulations to the team and all the very best for the next round. If I could invite the members of the winning team, I understand Simon's unwell this evening, but if I could also invite Amber, Molly, Sarah, Catherine, Sarah and Shantae to come down with Harminder and receive the trophy. Yeah, Harminder would. Oh, okay. Could we go in the middle? We can do it. Is it easier to in the middle? Just in there? I don't mind being the token male. Right, with that we then move on to item 6, which is questions from elected members. We have some questions in writing from Councillor Rowe, and I think we have some questions in writing from also Councillor Wright. You've received the responses? You haven't received the responses, okay. So Councillor Rowe, you have those questions, and who are they directed to?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. They are directed to the Acting Director of Assets.
Mr G, can you respond to those questions, please?
Do you want me to read them aloud or just for public record?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. These questions are in relation to bus shelters in the suburb of Girraween. I asked some of these questions in March 2022, and I'm just seeking an update today. The first is in relation to Hainsworth Avenue. A bus shelter, stop 16245 on Hainsworth Avenue, was removed on the 12th of January due to a structural failure. Given that 6 months have elapsed since the shelter was removed, can administration advise when it will be reinstalled? And I would ask for this to be treated as a matter of urgency.
Yep. Mr G.
Sorry, thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. The replacement of the shelter has been scheduled to occur as part of the asset renewal program for this current financial year, 22-23. The detailed design of which requires that there is an upgrade to the bus stop boarding area, and that's now in progress. And the city's also liaising with the Public Transport Authority over this design. The installation works will then occur as soon as the upgrade works to the bus stop boarding area has been completed. So the bus stop boarding area requires an upgrade to the curbing, the concrete hard stand area, and installation of tactile indicators, and that work needs to occur. Then the bus stop shelter will be installed.
Councillor Rowe.
The other questions relate to Blackmore Avenue in Girraween. 2 bus stops on Blackmore Avenue were relocated by the PTA in February 22 without adequate consultation with the community. The shelters were removed as part of the relocation, and the community have been without this asset for 5 months now. I'm advised that several comments were received objecting to the reinstallation of the shelters, so I have a couple of questions in relation to this. Number 1, can administration provide an update on the effort to reinstall or relocate these shelters, and does administration agree that 5 months without a replacement asset is unreasonable?
Mr G.
Yep, thank you, for you, Deputy Mayor. I do acknowledge that 5 months is a considerable time for a replacement to occur. However, there is a number of processes that also need to be undertaken before a shelter is installed. With regard to the Blackmore Avenue, the Public Transport Authority relocated the bus stops on Blackmore Avenue to be more evenly spaced along the bus route there. As part of their works, they have a requirement to upgrade all of the bus stops to be fully compliant with the Disability Discrimination Act requirements. Following the relocation of the bus stops, upgrade works to the boarding areas are required before new shelters can be considered. That work has been undertaken now. Then with regard to the shelters being installed, the city has contacted the adjacent residents, all of which have objected to the placement of bus shelters outside their houses. Public Transport Authority have since advised that one of these 2 new locations will also need to be relocated again due to some concerns over a road safety matter. So we are still working with the Public Transport Authority to confirm where that new bus stop will be relocated to. And as soon as we have that information, then we will need to again consult with any residents that might be affected. We're also working with PTA to ensure that the new location will have a provision for a bus shelter. There is obviously sometimes some issues over the footprint of a bus shelter, so we're making sure that that can occur in the newly chosen spot. As soon as the site has been confirmed, we will again consult with adjacent residents, and we do intend to bring a report back to Council at the earliest opportunity to discuss the objections received regarding the placement of the new bus shelters.
Councillor Rowe.
So in relation to the report that will be brought back to Council as soon as practicable, can I ask if this could occur by August? And does the acting CEO have delegation authority to approve the reinstallation without a resolution from Council?
Mr CEO, acting CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Under the policy, the Director Assets has a delegation to consider all the submission and approve the location of bus shelters. But generally, the practice has been when we receive objections, generally we don't install the bus shelters at that particular site. Given there is a request from council members, or we can refer the matter to council for a determination. So in this particular case, given that we have received objections, the intention would be to bring a report to council for council to consider and make a decision. And getting that to August could be a bit challenging given that we are still working with PTA on one of those 2 shelters. As soon as we have that information, at the first opportunity, we'll bring a report to council.
Councillor Rowe.
Thank you. My strong preference would be for August, given that we've now had 5 months in one location and 6 months in another without an asset, and we've gone through the majority of winter months and residents have been standing out there in the rain. If objections cannot be overruled by Council, I ask for administration to install the shelters or the lost assets to another suitable location in the South Ward. Can we make arrangements that if the objections cannot be overruled, that the South Ward does not lose this asset?
Mr G.
Yep, thank you for you, Deputy Mayor. The actual bus shelters that were initially lost, they cannot be replaced. They were the old concrete-style bus shelters, so they've reached near to the end of their design life. However, it is the intention to install new shelters for these two locations, and the City will be working with PTA to ensure that this does occur and that there is no loss of bus shelters within the South Ward.
And then my last question.
Just on that one, just before we go, I completely agree with that asset serviceability being in the South Ward, my fellow ward councillor.
I thought you might. My last question. Given the bus infrastructure policy, which is a 3-page document, I've read it quite thoroughly, it only relates to the provision of new infrastructure. What steps is the City taking to address circumstances such as this, where existing shelters or bus benches are removed without the knowledge of the community?
Mr J.
Yep, thank you. Through you again, Deputy Mayor. Whilst the circumstances of each shelter may be different, the internal operating procedure has been updated to require the reinstatement of any bus asset, so that shelter or seat that is removed. It is, however, subject to the public transport considerations that need to occur. And primarily that notes that when modifications at bus stops occur, there is now a requirement for any shelters to be installed that are fully compliant with the Disability Discrimination Act, and that involves that work of upgrading the bus surround.
Thank you, Mr G. Councillor Wright, you had some questions?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I've got 4 councillor questions tonight. One for the Acting Director of Assets, one for the Acting Chief Executive Officer, one for the Director of Community and Place, and one for the Director of Corporate Strategy and Performance. I'll go through one at a time, sorry.
Spreading them around. Thank you, Councillor.
The first question is in relation to the update of the City's website. I asked a question back in February 2022 about the usability of the City's website. And that it's not meeting the demands of the community at the moment in gaining access to information. So can administration please provide a status report on the update of the City's website and also the status of the councillor workshop?
Mr Acting CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Cities actually, as CEO previously advised, we are about to appoint a consultant to undertake that work. As soon as that appointment is made, the CEO then will be working with council members to schedule a workshop, and the other stakeholder consultation will happen after that.
Thank you.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you. My second question is in relation to a motion on notice that I had put forward to Council in March 2022. Can the Acting Chief Executive Officer please provide an update through the Acting CEO on my notice of motion from the March Council meeting, traffic management scheme in Kemp Street, Pearsall, and please provide the next steps to get this much needed infrastructure in place?
Mr J.
Yep, thank you for you, Deputy Mayor. I can provide a brief update to that. So in accordance with the Council decisions from the 15th of March Council meeting, a review against the policy has been undertaken. That's the local area traffic management policy. And that's resulted in a score of 33 for the location of Kemp Street. Now, in accordance with the policy provisions, no traffic management treatments are recommended at this point in time, as the minimum score for some intervention is generally around 60. So the City is planning on some interim measures, such as the deployment of the speed advisory trailer to help educate motorists, and I will provide a further update to you in the coming days on the outcome of the study that was occurred.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you. And just reconfirming, so now that the motion on notice has obviously coming back with the results, to be able to override this would have to come back as another motion on notice to Council, is that correct?
I believe that we can either bring that back as a report, I believe, or I can provide you a briefing note on that one.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Wright.
In relation to the Wanneroo Recreation Centre, can the Director of Community in Place please provide a status update through the Acting Chief Executive Officer on the upgrade of this centre and when this is scheduled to be completed by, as I've heard it has been delayed again?
Ms Terrelink.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So council members will recall that there were some concept designs for the Wanneroo Recreation Centre presented in February. Council members asked for some additional work to be done on these concepts. The consultant was re-engaged to undertake the additional work which is expected to be completed this month. So in the next couple of months, we'll be presenting the updated concept plans and options to council members for consideration.
Thank you, Mrs Terrelink. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. My last question is administration aware that last month a small bike track was knocked down by city staff that was created by local youth at Ashbrook Park in Pearsall and has caused community detriment, attracting over 150 Facebook reactions and almost 100 comments in an hour? Clearly this issue is of community interest. Can the city please provide a response as to why the track was destroyed?
Mr G.
Yep, thank you through you, Deputy Mayor. Administration is aware of the bike jumps that have recently been removed at Ashbrook Park. Administration has also recently removed other similar jumps that have been noted in that park on several occasions as part of routine maintenance and efforts to maintain and restore the conservation value of the reserve. The creation of the unauthorised bike track through the reserve there presents a public safety risk and threatens the species habitat there. Primarily Ashbrook Park is a Banksia-dominated woodland location. There's also the impact there of the Pearsall Primary School, which have adopted the bushland at the park, and on a monthly basis they undertake some bush care activities such as litter picking and hand weeding. In relation to the recent removal, the bike jumps that was observed within the park were determined to be unsafe for the public. They included within them a large hole, diameter of around about 2 metres and a depth of somewhere between half a metre to a metre. And this was observed just prior to a school planting event. So administration made arrangements to remove the large jump and filled in the hole to ensure there was no risk to the public or Pearsall Primary School students.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Herridge.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I have one easy one this evening for our Director of Community in Place. Just looking for an update on the Southern Suburbs Library.
Ms Terrelink.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So council members will recall that we are doing some further work in regard to the concept designs. This work has actually just been finished, so we received that late last week, and I anticipate there will be a report coming to the August council meeting on the concept designs and a request to go to community consultation and then proceed to detailed design.
Thank you, Mrs Terrelink. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have 3 questions tonight. The first question is for the Director of Community in Place. On the 15th of February at the council meeting, Councillor Baker moved a motion on notice I seconded to bring forward the review of the local cat laws, subject to the outcome of a community consultation. Pet ownership continues to cause issues and is always very topical. I understand that admin intend to complete consultation during 2022 and report to council in early 23. Given we break in January, that report would not be available until February 23. Does admin consider a year to consult and provide a report reasonable? How can this subject be dealt with in a more timely manner as other councillors are amending or have amended their local cat laws already? Thank you.
Mrs Terrelink.
Yes, through you, Deputy Mayor. I think the community consultation has only just been budgeted in this budget, so that's the reason why the work is only going to start now that Council has adopted the budget. It is quite a topical issue in terms of cat laws, so we do want to do comprehensive consultation with the community and then we'll report back to Council.
Thank you, Mrs Tirrelink. Councillor Berry.
Thank you. My second question is for the acting CEO, and this question relates to site lot 211, the former Quinn's Caravan Park, and is not in the agenda for within the items that are mentioned tonight. On the 4th of October 2021, before being elected to council, I raised a concern that I had from being a member of the RAP group. The concern relates to the Nunga's 6 Seasons walking trails, one of which is located in the Quinns Beach Bushland Reserve. My concern was in regard to if a development went ahead, what would happen to the walking trail? The response I had was to advise this land is not an Aboriginal heritage trail and it would simply be relocated. Given the local community of Mindarie and Quinns, and further, accesses walking trail, and it provides community enjoyment, where would it be relocated to, and would it still be within the Quinns Mindarie community area? Thank you.
Mr Acting CEO.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll have to take that on notice and provide a response.
Thank you, Mr Acting CEO. Councillor Berry.
Thank you. And my last question is also for the acting CEO. Prior to the last council meeting, I raised a suggestion regarding the election of the mayor following the resignation of Mayor Roberts. I will acknowledge I was an apology at the last council meeting due to COVID. I was told my suggestion could not be included in the local government as the Local Government Act gives clear guidance. Following the meeting I was an apology for, I was told my suggestion could have been included in the letter that went to the Minister. This suggestion, if approved by the Minister, would have seen no cost for a mayoral election at all to ratepayers. I accept now it's too late, but can admin please provide all councillors guidance on a process required to have things included when they're an apology, as no electronic means to join council meetings is currently permitted. Thank you.
Mrs Jennings.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I actually can't remember what the proposal was because it was such a complicated item, but I'll take that on notice and also talk to Councillor Berry about the processes so that we can make sure that that's taken into account.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs Jennings. Thank you, Councillor Berry. Are there any further questions? Yeah, Councillor Civic.
Thank you, Acting Deputy Mayor, or Deputy Mayor, I should say. My question relates to the paper that was given for the public question statement and question time, and it refers to item PQ03-7/22, Cowra, silent, warranted payments of WALGA membership. And it refers to item number 2, which reads that I had actually attended a conference in Canberra and that it may have been paid by WALGA. I did not attend that conference at all. And in fact, as a state councillor, I don't believe that ALGA would pay for state councillors to go to the ALGA National General Assembly other than the President and the Deputy President, to my knowledge. The only time that I guess WALGA would pay for me as a state councillor is when the state council actually goes on the road to the regions, and that would be once a year. But from the city's perspective, I did not attend that conference, and I have been very frugal in my attendance of conferences over the last 3 or 4 years, and I would only ever attend them if there was any educational benefit to me and to council. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I take that as a rhetorical question and a statement, and unfortunately, Councillor, there is a spate of misinformation out there perpetrating from parts of our community, and I did attend, and happy to say I did with Councillor Wright. I certainly didn't see you there, so you were keeping a very low profile if you did attend. Councillors, with that, we move on. We close questions from elected members, item 6. We now move on to item 7, petitions. We do have one petition. Councillor Miles, if you could present that petition, please.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have a petition here of 163 signatures. It was a petition that was the residents' wishes to had tabled at the special council meeting. Well, obviously you can't do that, so it comes to the next ordinary council meeting, which is this one tonight, and it's to the Mayor of the City of Wanneroo. We, the undersigned, all being residents of the City of Wanneroo, do formally request Council's consideration that the City of Wanneroo do not impose any increase to residential rates for the financial year of 2022-23 for the following reasons. 1. Many families living within the City of Wanneroo have been and continues to experience severe financial hardship as direct economic consequence of COVID-19 and the pandemic. 2. Many ratepayers have already been impacted adversely by the recent and continuing rises in the cost of living. And 3, many families' financial capacity and disposable income levels have been significantly reduced by the recent interest rate rises, with more interest rate rises predicted to come in the near future. And it says that the City of Wanneroo should work harder to try to find savings within the existing expenditures, find more cost-efficient ways to do its daily business, and to look for more efficiencies in the procurement of city works to find savings rather than impose further financial burden on the community, which has already experienced financial hardship. That's it. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. And just a quick question for you, Councillor Miles. Was the petition provided with a contact name, address or telephone number?
Yeah, so what administration have had to use is they've used the first name on the front page, which is Doneherd Sayason in 23 Pomodoro Avenue. I think that's in Lansdale.
I believe so.
Yeah,
but the petition itself doesn't have a, traditionally it will have a contact name, address and phone number.
Not in the preamble.
No, yeah, okay. We have a seconder to accept the petitions. Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillors, if I could ask you to please cast your vote to accept the petition. I declare that carried unanimously. Councillors, we then move on to item 8, reports. And councillors, if you have any declarations of interest on any of the matters on this evening's agenda, if you could just raise those matters when we get to them, please. Councillors, we'll move to item the planning and sustainability. We'll go to PSO 10722. Mover and seconder for that item. Move Councillor Miles, seconder Councillor Civic. Councillor Miles, did you wish to speak on this item?
Oh, yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, I did ask many questions at the briefing session last week and also during the week with administration after the two planners on behalf of half a dozen or so of our ratepayers and residents that have land which may be impacted by this Amendment 172. Administration have worked with all of those submissions, and there have been some changes from last week to this week that administration have done to rectify some of those concerns, and all the other people that were concerned were obviously spoken to by administration, and the right advice was given at the time. I'm quite comfortable that administration have covered off on all the concerns that I had and also some of those landowners had. Albeit I'm sure we will still be receiving some correspondence from a couple of those landowners to just make sure that we have ticked off all of those concerns, making this amendment worthwhile without any other amendments going forward. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillor Civic.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I agree with Councillor Miles on this. It is really good to see that this is now coming to council, and we are starting to streamline our town planning scheme in line with town planning scheme number 3 into the future, and certainly taking out a lot of the grey areas from planning to make them decision-making process hopefully a lot easier and beneficial. Together with Councillor Miles, I've had many a phone call from people or parties which are a party to this particular item, sort of talking about their worries, etc., and what it will do to their land in the future. However, this may not be ticked off by the West Australian Planning Commission and the Minister for some time yet. It is not all doom and gloom for those who have any real worries about them, and I suggest that they work with our planning directors and department to make sure that we can get the maximum benefit for them. But looking at this overall, I'm very pleased that our planning department, under the directorship of Mr Dixon, are heading in the right direction on this, and our town planning scheme number 2 is a very congested one and certainly needs modifying and moving forward. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Civic. Councillors, speakers for the item? Speakers against the item? Councillor Miles, you want to exercise right of reply? You're not exercising that, councillors. We will put that item, if I could ask you to register your votes. I declare that that is carried unanimously. Councillors, with your indulgence, if I could actually seek a motion to move forward the item on the Quinn's Caravan Park to be the next one. Moved Councillor Aitken, seconded Councillor Rowe. So that's just a change to the order of business. Councillors, if you could just cast your vote on that, please. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So just bear with me for a moment, councillors. Just going to get back to that situation. Right. Yep. So, councillors, we're moving on to CS030722, which is the project update for the Quinn's Caravan Park redevelopment expression of interest process. So moved Councillor Aitken, seconded pro forma, and seconded Councillor Civic. Councillors, we have an amendment which is being moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Parker. And there is also a foreshadowed alternative proposal, but we need to go to the amendment first. So I'll just speak to the amendment. Councillors, the intention of the amendment is to acknowledge that we currently are engaged at the back end of the expression of interest process, and this isn't to engage any further with any particular proponent. And the intention here is to say that there isn't a position where council seeks to continue negotiations. It's important then, I think, what we do need to do is to provide all of the information that is available to us that can be released to the community, as part of community consultation, and to undertake that process first and seek the community's feedback on the option that we were considering. And this is just simply part of the corporate process that we've got to go through. So essentially those changes are trying to make very clear that whilst discussions may continue, certainly negotiations are not, and it also makes very clear that we will provide a community consultation process with the community of Wanneroo in all formats and forums that we can, and provide as much information as we have on the expressions of interest to gauge the community's feedback based on the evidence that we've got. So anything that we've got, the community is going to be able to see that. And that's generally the intention of this. It's to say, well, okay, we have an expression of interest. There's one that seems to fit to a certain degree. Let's let the community know what we've seen and ask for their feedback. That's what this is intending to do. It doesn't intend to take the proposal forward at this stage until community consultation has concluded and we can take into account and consideration what the community's views are following that process. So, councillors, that's the intention of the amendment to the report, and hopefully community consultation is the main aim of this particular amendment. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I am supporting this amendment. In summary, Council resolved in November 2012 to redevelop and operate the Quinns Rocks Caravan Park as a typical modern caravan park. The old park, which was in severe disrepute, was cleared of all remaining permanent residents in 2014, which allowed for the next stage of development to begin. To ensure neutrality and transparency throughout the process, in 2017, Praxis, an independent specialist agency, was engaged by the City to develop a business case with development scenario options, which broadened the scope to a holiday park. I must mention the cost of using Praxis to this point has cost our ratepayers $138,685. The outcome of the business case was presented to Council in September 2020, and Council's resolution was for Praxis to proceed with market-based interest from third-party operators to develop the site as a modern caravan or holiday park. Parallel to the above, consultation was to take place with the Quinns Rocks Caravan Park Redevelopment Working Group and a community advisory group representing local environmental, heritage and business and tourism interests, the latter being formed to positively assist in the development of the expressions of interest process. It must be highlighted at this point, the preparation of the expression of interest document incorporated input from Praxis as well as the Quinns Rocks Redevelopment Working Group and the Quinns Rocks Redevelopment Community Advisory Group. The expression of interest process would be a two-stage process. The first stage, which is under discussion tonight, intended to investigate market interest in developing the site. Candidates were invited to lodge a submission for the development and operation of a low-impact and environmentally sensitive tourism accommodation development on one or both of the following sites: the historical site or an expanded footprint. This format was in accordance with Council's resolution in September 2020. The expression of interest went out through multiple communication channels, 9 in publicised form and 23 direct emails to caravan park operators and business and industry associations. The list can be found on page 411 and 412 of tonight's agenda. Only 2 submissions were received. Administration did seek feedback from various operators who said the site was too small to make it a financially viable business option. What has come out of the expression of interest and is in tonight's agenda is different to that originally envisaged. However, and this needs to be heard and clearly understood, the 2 submissions received had to be acknowledged and addressed. Anything less could and should be construed as underhand and highly questionable by the 2 proponents and other business and residents groups. Yes, the proposal from Heritage WA that is the preferred permission is different, and for this reason, I strongly believe it is Council's responsibility to ensure the entire community is informed of the outcome of the expression of interest and the proposal by Heritage WA. Tonight, Council needs to accept or reject the proposed amendment that enables that process to take place. I would like to emphasise that following discussions with the City, and proponent, further reports will come back to Council and no decision on the proposal is being made tonight. Project information in relation to the preferred proposal, as soon as practicable, will be released via various avenues, and importantly, community engagement will take place throughout the city, as per the city's policy, and will include existing lessees of Lot 211. As already mentioned, and is clearly stated in the reason for this amendment, community engagement is of utmost importance. As a councillor, I have always stood by and will continue to apply my rule of honesty, fairness and transparency to all decisions I make for the entire City of Wanneroo. I would like to thank everyone in Chambers tonight for their interest and participation. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillors, speakers for? Speakers against? There being none, sorry, Councillor Sangali.
I just want to clarify something because I did hear both of you mention about community consultation, community engagement, and then informing the community. So I'm just wanting to know what the difference is, because the question was asked last week. There's a difference between community engagement, informing community, and community consultation. So I just want to nut down exactly what it is that we're going to be doing.
I think I can go back and probably go back on the transcript. I think I did say that we should be employing all of the available avenues for consultation possible in order to engage with the community. This isn't a decide and defend approach. This is engaging genuine community consultation. That is absolutely the intent, and I'm happy for that to go on the record. Councillor Sangali.
So as part of that consultation, will we be asking the question of what the community would like to see on that land?
Well, the consultation will be on the proposal that's in front of us, and I think it was also quite clear that this closes out that process. This is only to go to the community, for the community to have their say in as broad a sense as possible, the proposal that council has got the information on.
So perhaps maybe if I could ask the director, based on what you've just said, it was on what's in front of us, and what's in front of us is not asking the community what they want on that land. So I just want to be clear that the consultation that we're doing is either just on this submission, or we are going to broaden that scope and actually ask the community what they want on that land.
Councillor Sangali, I think I can just go back and reaffirm what I just said, and that's on the submission that we've received to close out that process and allow all of the community to see the information that's available that councillors have on the submission.
So it would be just on the glamping proposal. It would not be on anything else, CMCA or anything else. It wouldn't be about asking land use. It's just on this one.
Well, I don't know how I can refer to it any other way, Councillor. I've said it twice as to what it would be.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear.
That's fine. Speakers for? Question? Councillor Civic?
Just for absolute clarity, when we refer to community, we refer to the City of Wanneroo, because technically the land belongs to all the ratepayers of the City of Wanneroo. So it is the community, not the adjoining community.
Well, my intention is that there shouldn't be any part of the community that should be precluded from this. Correct. It should be the local community, absolutely, certainly the local community. But there are also, and we don't prescribe to limit the engagement by precluding other members of the broader City of Wanneroo. Councillor, for, against or question?
Against.
Thank you.
I don't know if I should
already speak about the against, but I'm going to do it now before it's too late. First of all, I would like to say thank you for all of the emails that we received. I've read everything. I'm listening, and I heard and I'm listening. We have a similar problem in Two Rocks that you guys are going through at the moment. So I totally feel what you're going through. It's your area, you live there, you know exactly what's going on there every day. In 2012, when council decided to work on this to make it a caravan park again, I understand that. That was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there was no Life Surf Saving Club, and there was no Portofinos, there was no community centre. Things have changed in this 10 years. It got really busy there. I don't really go swimming there anymore because my boys are much bigger now and so, but I do know that it is very busy there. A couple of months ago, even a year or two ago, and 5 years ago when me and Natalie went to the very first community consultation together, I was for the caravan park. But as time went past, and a lot of time went past, things just got more busier there. And there's no parking, like we all know that. But do we really need a caravan park there, as so many things have already been shoved in there?
Councillor Curtsey, I've just got to ask you a question. Are you speaking to the substantive motion or item or the amendment? Because we're on the amendment at the moment.
Well, I'm speaking against all of it. So
well, we're on,
should I not have done it now, or should I have waited?
We're only on the amendment.
Yeah.
And the amendment is suggesting that we go out to community consultation.
Okay, so if this goes through, then...
Well, the amendment then becomes the substantive motion as amended.
Yeah. Okay, well, then I don't have to speak further about that one. I'm just against it. I'm totally...
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're only discussing the amendment.
It's basically against the whole item, so amendment and the item, so yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Speakers for, speakers against. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm not in support of your proposed alternative to the recommendation. I don't think it goes far enough. I think it only gives the community the chance to raise concerns on one proposal, and it doesn't look at anything else. So I'm against your alternative recommendation. Thank you.
Speakers for. Speakers against. Councillor Huntley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor, I do like this alternative, but I can't support it because it doesn't go far enough. After seeing my email box, I'm sorry I didn't reply to you all, but my email box exploded, and the same thing was repetitive. So I actually took a trip out and stopped at the caravan park and had a look. And that car park was stuffed full, and everybody was using the overflow. I went out when I first became an elected member, out with Natalie, and she took me around the caravan park and we had a look, and even we had to park in the overflow car park, and that was even on a cold winter's day and late in the evening. So, it was amazing how full it is. It's very, very busy. So parking is a real issue, and I do think that before we go out to public consultation, I do think we do need to find out what we're going to do and how we're going to do anything about the traffic control before we even contemplate putting anything else on that area. It's tiny. It's going to be in the short term. Unfortunately, the sea will take it in the end, and so no business is really going to put anything there knowing that it's got such a short space of time. So I think parking is the real issue. Parking is an issue now, right now with Portofinos and everything. There is a wedding venue there, so technically that's
Councillor
covered.
Huntley, Apologies, but are you speaking to the substantive item or the amendment?
So I'm talking to the amendment. At the moment, I don't think it goes far enough. It needs to look at parking and it needs to consider what the community actually want there right now. So there's two things that are missing on this amendment. So I can't be supporting the amendment, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. Speakers for. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you. This amendment is to send the item out for more consultation. When the consultation comes back, if the community is for it, we have support to go ahead with it. If the community does not support it, then we know how to make our decision and the EOI falls over and then we go back to the community for what they want. This is a process that we have started and needs to be finished appropriately. This is not a decision-making place. We are asking the community what we want after having gone through 10 years of consultation to get to this stage, and we've based everything we've done with the EOI on the consultation through the community. Now we're taking the results of that consultation back to the community, asking them what they want, and then with the results of that, we will make the decision-making process. So if it falls over, then we go back to the drawing board and we start again. But at this time, we have to finish this process. We have to finish what we've started. We've spent a lot of money getting to here, and we need to know clearly whether the community say yay or no. This is a consultation process to hear what the community says, this amendment. It is not the acceptance or non-acceptance. We want to hear what they say, the whole community, and just ask that you support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Speakers against? Councillor Singali.
I'm definitely speaking against this. As others have said, the consultation process doesn't go far enough. We're not asking the community what they want. We're asking the community to either accept an inappropriate development to what they were expecting or to reject it. That's it. We're not asking them what they want on that land. We have never asked them what they want on that land. And I can go back to that very first consultation meeting when the person who was running the consultation referred to the Caravan Park site as a holiday park. And 100 people in that room got up and started yelling and saying, it is not a holiday park, it is a caravan park. And the distinction was made right back then that the community wanted and they supported a caravan park. They did not support a holiday park, and they didn't support glamping, they didn't support anything else. They supported a caravan park. It was raised continually throughout all of the processes ever since. Every meeting I've been to, I have raised these issues that the community have raised. This isn't news to councillors that the community were opposing this. It's not news to administration that the community were opposing this. If we chose to continually spend money for a consultation to produce something that the community didn't want, that's on us. But we were the ones that put all that infrastructure down there in the first place. We are the ones that have been drawing people into that area. And now we're sitting there saying, we're going to go and add more, but we're not going to fix your parking. We're not going to look at the parking until after we've worked out what we're going to do on this piece of land. It's like the horse before the cart, or the cart before the horse. It's just going around and round in circles. And the community have raised these issues right from the day dot. And they have not been listened to. They're still not being listened to. And what expectation can that community now have that this consultation will actually be listened to? Because so far they haven't seen any evidence of it.
Thank you, Councillor Singali. Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just want to speak on the amendment before we go to the substantive, whichever way it goes. It is very clear in the amendment, and whilst probably the gallery can't see the board very clear, it does state 7.6 notes that administration will consult with the Queen's Rocks Caravan Park Redevelopment Working Group to support and inform the discussions in item 4 above. Notes that administration will commence as soon as practical during the discussions described in item 4 above to release preliminary project information in relation to the preferred proposal, including via the City's Your Say internet page. So it's going to go out to the city as a whole, as indicated by Councillor Questions. B, undertake further community engagement in accordance with the city's community engagement policy, and engage with the existing lessees of the city's land, meaning the obviously the Surf Lifesaving Club and the Portofinos next door. And then obviously we'll note the administration will prepare a report and bring it back to a future ordinary council meeting, as Councillor Parker indicated, and there's some renaming of the working group to what it should be, a tourist park, and notes that administration will continue to investigate and will report to council on options to preserve and enhance the environment value of portions of Lot 211 Quinns Road. So I'm comfortable with the amendment. It's clearly articulating that it's going to be done some more consultation through the discussion process using our community engagement policy, and it's going to be advertised through our normal have your say process. So the city residents as a whole will be able to participate in what they would like to have. If they want to have the glamping heritage wedding venue put there, then if we get enough support from that, then I dare say administration will bring that through. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Speakers against? Speakers for? Councillor Questions.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, from my perspective, I have the utmost admiration for the alternative that Councillor Sangalli has put forward, as well as what you, Deputy Mayor, put forward here. It's not clear. My view has always been that this site has been earmarked for a caravan park. It has the area and the precinct required for that. We don't go outside that precinct. We retain the bushland. We make it a feature of that area there. But in the process of time, as you, Councillor Treby, will know, you and I were there in 1999 when the issues started to rise as the non-viability of the caravan park and the way it was falling apart, and the city had to take action. In that process of time, many things have changed. Councillor Questions has indicated the surf club's gone up. Great, we need a surf club. It has a home now. It has a liquor licensing area, and it commits to the community with a service that is unsurpassed. We also have Portofinos. That was a decision made by council many years ago. People love that place. I'm sure they do. They have receptions there, etc. The tenant who actually built the premises has done a very good job, and it is a landmark for the city and the residents in that area. For me, this is not going to go away. I believe there is a place for a caravan park. I believe we have to look at this seriously. The process being talked about, car parking, it's a big world now. We've got people everywhere, and the first thing that people are going to do, they will object to anything and everything. Whether it's a hotel next door to a house which has been there for 20 years, or the hotel's been there for 20 years and we've had people objecting that it shouldn't be operating. These are just some of the comments I'm making with regards to people's thinking. I'm certainly empathetic to the residents of Quinns and surrounding areas. I believe they need to be listened to, as well as the ratepayers of the City of Wanneroo. I think by supporting this, I won't be making any rash decisions until we're absolutely concrete where we go with this with the community, and we make sure the decision is the right one, and we will make that right decision for sure, and I'm certain we'll have the community on our side. So for the sake of process, for the sake of, if it's sending it back, which it's not, but it's giving direction to council, we still haven't made a decision, and that decision will come within 6 months. I don't want this to go out 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. We need to make this decision, hopefully within 6 months, and have a clear direction as what we do with this site. But from mine, even though there are these nominated parties that are going to put glamping, etc., and we've rejected one or whatever, I still believe it's not done yet. So I'll be supporting this for the sake of process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Savetan, and that's exactly what it's about, is process. Speakers against? Speakers, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I do agree with the substance of the proposed amendment, but I can't support it in its current format, and I'll briefly explain why. I do want to thank both Director Jennings and Mr Greer, because they did spend more than half an hour on the phone with me trying to allay some of my concerns. I reached some consensus on some things, but not entirely enough to be able to support this amendment. I do think the amendment needs to specifically say the extent of the community consultation, and I think the way in which you answered Councillor Sangali's point was to say basically that it's going to be about the proposal that we are nominating as the preferred proponent tonight, and that's just the glamping. I do think there needs to be a question in there that actually asks the community what they foresee as a suitable use of that site. I do think the proposed amendment needs to reference the traffic study, the car park study. I know that the preliminary results will only be available in November, and then they will need to do some further measurements over the space of the summer period, because that generally is the time when the overflow car parking is most at its capacity. But I think that needs to be included in the amendment. Not to say that the final support of the proposal is conditional upon that, but direct reference to it, the fact that it will come back, that study, alongside the outcome of the community consultation, to us when we look at accepting or voting on this lease. That's my view on it. I can't support it in its current format.
Thank you, councillors. Just going through the debate, just in respect of the potential to incorporate a section in the consultation that provides an opportunity for the community to provide feedback as to exactly what they would like to see at that location, if it's not this, does that allay some of the concerns, councillors? If it was, okay, well, I'm happy to include that, because the intention was, if I could say, was to simply close out a process. So if we were to add, just in terms of community consultation, Mr CEO, we're acting CEO. Let's just get it at in the correct location.
Deputy Mayor.
7B, if we were to go into 7B to also include a section in the consultation that provides an opportunity for the community to express their view as to what they would prefer to see there. Councillor Berry.
Can we not just incorporate part of Councillor Singali's?
Councillor, no, we can't. We do one amendment.
Take the word in.
We do one amendment at a time, and this is the amendment that we've got.
But if you took her word in, it would fulfil the amendment that you want to put in. If you looked at point 3, request admin to consult with the community to obtain their view for the preferred use or partial lot 211. That would give the community the option to say whether they actually want this or want something else.
Yep. Okay, councillor, that's probably not a bad idea. Thank you for suggesting that. No, that's fine. So if we were to incorporate that under 7, under 7B. Yeah, on 7A, yeah. So it would be, B would be to undertake further community engagement in accordance with the city's community consultation policy in respect of 7A, and then C Yeah, and
Other options for the site.
the wording, I think we would say, which comes from, yeah, yeah, okay, that would be, let's include that as a new 8. This is when some of the staff actually earn their money on a Tuesday night. So if we were to add Madonna, yeah, councillors, can we just adjourn for 5 minutes so as we get this correct? We're just going to adjourn for 5 minutes just so as we can get the wording correct. Yep. Moved, Councillor Aitken, seconded, Councillor Miles. Are there any objections? There being none, declare that carried. Just need to be efficient with the process.
Madonna, can you stop that streaming, please?
Okay, councillors. Yeah, we're going to recommence the councillors. Councillors, we're recommencing the meeting. Councillor Parker is there. Councillor Parker is there. Good. Just deep in discussion, Councillor Parker. Councillors, we're reconvening. Councillors, during that break, we've had some discussion about the potential to incorporate some additional wording to pick up the elements of the debate that came up. And Madonna, if you're able to project that onto the screen, I think the additions are highlighted in blue. So at 7B, so the engagement to include consultation with the community to obtain their views on the preferred use. Councillor Aitken, I saw your hand up to reconvene the meeting. Yeah, I'm sure that Councillor Civic also agreed to that. Councillors, there are no objections. I declare that carried. Well done, Councillor Aitken. You were a mile ahead of me. So, include consultation with the community to obtain their views for the preferred use for the former Queen's Rocks Caravan site, whilst clearly outlining the current uses, community values and constraints and the environmental impacts. I think we can all agree with that, councillors. I think 8 is dropped at this point. It's superfluous to requirements. And there's an addition in 9 that the outcomes of the community consultation process is engaged with council, and the intention is to come back to a full forum in advance of that being to a council meeting, so all councillors are engaged and aware of what's going on. So just on that, Councillor Parker, are you happy with those inclusions as the second of the amendment?
Very happy, thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Aitken.
Just a question. I would suggest that if we've got rid of note 8, that note 9 number 9 becomes 8, just as a correction, so we get that right. It's not changed in the amendment, that's all.
Just you're right up on all the technical terms tonight, aren't you, Councillor Aitken? Well done, thank you. We'll note that change. We renumber 9-8. Okay, that'll happen as a matter of course, councillors. I'm sure we'll get the numbering correct. So, councillors, with that, I'm happy to close debate on the amendment if there are no objections. I think that incorporates many of the concerns that council have. Okay, I'm happy to close the debate on that, councillors. So with that, I'll ask you to cast your vote on the amendment, noting that change to the numbering. I declare that carried 11-1, and the opposing vote is Councillor Rowe. Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Yep. Councillors, that then becomes the amended motion, or the main motion, substantive motion as amended, moved by Councillor Aitken, seconded by Councillor Civic. Councillor Aitken.
I just encourage my fellow councillors to support the new substantive. We really want to get it right on that area of land, right for the community, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we end up with there. Thank you.
Councillor Civic.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, agreed. Look, no outcome tonight. I think we've got better days ahead of us as long as we don't use too much time in this whole process. I think we can come to the required decision-making process through this particular amendment, and I think I look forward to it, and it'll be an interesting time. So thank you for that. Nothing more to add.
Thank you, Councillor Civic. Speakers for? Speakers against? Councillors, with that would probably conclude debate on this item. Councillor Aitken, you don't need the right to reply? Okay, councillors, I'll put CSO 3, which is the amended motion. I ask you to cast your votes, please. And that's passed 11-1 with the dissenting vote. Oh my God, you're kidding. I'm glad the acting CEO pointed out the obvious. I declare that carried unanimously, councillors. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We then move back to the top of the agenda. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming along. I can't believe I voted no on that. Oh, my gosh. Oh, no. That's fine if everyone hears that. That's okay. So, thank you. So, councillors, we then move on to PSO 20722, which is the review of local planning policy 4.21, coastal assets. Mover for this item, Councillor Parker moving, seconded Councillor Aitken. Councillor Parker, did you have anything to add on this item?
Yeah, just a couple of words. I support the recommendation, noting in particular the objectives to encourage innovative asset design through a combination of permanent facilities and temporary relocatable structures that fulfil a short-term purpose. Also, the conservation of natural assets and ecological values, while providing a range of coastal foreshore uses that encourage physical activity and connectivity with the natural environment, and continue to recognise the impacts of climate change through informed planning. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Aitken.
Yeah, and I really like the part about the access and inclusion, so that our coastal assets have access and inclusion for all people to be able to use the areas, and that really excites me as we're looking at it in our future development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Speakers for? Councillor Miles, question?
Yeah, no, just a question. In light of, and this will be a question, I don't know whether it's to the Director or not, Deputy Mayor. In light of the discussion or the changes that the federal government are making to the environmental process, where they're changing some of the carbon items and all of that for climate change, and I don't have a problem with that, but it was made clear last Thursday or Friday that because of those changes, the Prime Minister suggested that flooding and that probably won't be as severe. So my question to administration is, when does the char map get updated to reflect possible lessening of climate change as indicated by the Prime Minister?
Mr G?
No, Mr Dixon.
Oh, Mr Dixon, sorry, yes.
It's Mr D as opposed to Mr G.
Yeah, Mr Dixon.
Yeah, I will take that on notice, but I'm pretty sure that it's every 10 years that the char map is updated, but I will confirm that in writing through the minutes.
Thank you, Mr D. Councillors, speakers against? Speakers for? Councillor Aitken, you right? No. Councillor Parker, you have right to reply, Councillor Parker?
Nothing more to say, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillors, if I could ask you to please cast your votes. Yep, press the right button this time. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to PS 030722, preparation of Amendment 202 in respect of the Neerabup industrial area. Move, Councillor Civic.
Could I do a procedural motion for PS 03, 4 and 5, just basing off how many questions were asked at the briefing session, unless any other councillor wants to speak to the item, to do en bloc, just for the rest of the planning items?
Yeah, happy to do that. Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillors, are there any exceptions on PS 03, 4 or 5? Are there any exceptions? Because I'll move those en bloc. No, not speaking to them, just move them en bloc if you wish to speak to any of those items. We can move those en bloc, councillors. Yeah, Councillor Civic, you're still happy to move? Councillor Wright, were you seconding that? You're seconding that. Councillor Civic, did you wish to speak to...
Just briefly to PS03 and PS04. Look, these areas are becoming very, very important in the context of, well, this area of Neerabup is becoming very important in the context of Wanneroo, and the zones there are appropriate. That particular area of Neerabup in the next 30 years will be actually central. It will be right in the heart between Two Rocks and Girraween, and it will be the pivotal area for innovative industrial estates. So I'm really pleased that the amendment number 202 to the district planning scheme is now before us, and I can't wait for this to happen, especially with uses, hopefully waste to energy and robotics and so many other exciting things, and together with a rail system. I'm not sure whether the rail system will be for transport of industrial goods, but if it is, it'll be an enhancement, and certainly congratulations to the Planning Department for preparing these two in conjunction with, I've forgotten his name now, our advocacy specialist, put it that way. Steve Marmion, thank you. So I encourage councillors to vote for PSO2, PSO3 and I think PSO4 en bloc, unless there are any other comments to be made. But other than that, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vitt, and I'm sure Mr Marmion will be thrilled. Councillor Wright, do you have any comments on those items?
No further comments from me.
Thank you. Councillors, that closes debate. I'll put items PSO3, PSO4 and PSO5 moving en bloc. If you could cast your votes, please. Declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, we then move on to CP01 in Community and Place, which is the review of policies for community and place on page 306. You have a mover for this item, councillors. Move Councillor Miles, seconding Councillor Parker. Councillor Miles.
Deputy Mayor, no, I think the report pretty much stands by itself. Administration, again, reviewing policies and removing red tape, which I think is always a plus for our community. So I commend the item to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillor Parker.
I think only just one small little comment. I am so incredibly happy to know that circus performing animals will no longer be allowed in the city. I'm incredibly proud of that. Well overdue. Well done, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. Speakers for this item, councillors? Speakers against? Councillor Miles, not sure you need right to reply on this. No worries. Councillor Miles has closed debate. Councillors, if I could please ask you to cast your votes. Declare that carried unanimously. Councillors, in the spirit of Councillor Wright's previous suggestion, If we can move CSO1 and CSO2 on block, unless there are any exceptions, councillors. So moving, Councillor Civic, you happy to move? Yeah. And seconding, Councillor Huntley. Councillor Civic?
All good.
Thank you. Councillor Huntley.
Thank you.
Yeah, all good with me.
Thank you. Are there any speakers for these items, councillors? Against? If I could then please ask you to cast your votes. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. CSO3 we have done. We then move on to, gosh, Councillor Wrights, item 9.
You got CSO4.
CSO4? Oh, gosh. CSO4, sorry, councillors. It's at the bottom of the page. CSO4, which is the leasing policy review. Move Councillor Rowe, seconded Councillor Miles. Councillor Rowe?
Just briefly, Deputy Mayor, to say that I'm in full support of the policy review, and I thank Mr Greer for his answers last week in terms of allowing lessees to maintain their properties, obviously under a diligent supervision from council to make sure that everything is in compliance. So thanks for your answers last week.
Councillor Miles?
No comment, thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Miles. Speakers for or on this item, councillors? Speakers against? Speaking against council for? Question?
Question?
Question, Councillor Singali.
It's just a question around the new ground and building leases, and that we don't have a process in place and that we are going to put something in place. And it's saying that the new leasing management procedure will be reviewed and updated after the new LP is finalised. I know it's a management procedure, but previously when there's been lease issues that have come to individual councillors, it's usually us who get asked all these things first. So would it be handy for us to actually even see the old one, just to see what it is that we're actually agreeing to? Because we're being asked to agree to a management procedure being done after this, but we've got really no idea what it is.
Mr Acting CEO, did you have any comment to make on the opportunity to view the management procedure for council?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, normally the management procedure will reflect the policy position, so that's why it's not included in the report at this point in time.
But ongoing, is there any rationale as to why that might not be made available to councillors on the hub, for argument's sake?
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor, definitely that can be made available and for council members once it's finalised.
Okay. Councillor, does that respond to your question?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I guess, it's just because it actually says at the moment there is no process in place. So to have an idea of what's actually being suggested would be handy for councillors to know, I just think.
Mr Greer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, so Councillor, the couple of items on the management procedure. Currently, the management procedure is quite dense. It goes beyond just operational into very, very, very fine-grained detail. The intention is primarily to clean up the document in the same way that the policy has been cleaned up somewhat. On the ground lease aspect, up until this year, we didn't really have any that were coming up. We had, a few old or older sites that were in the motorsport area and BMX club, but not really anything much beyond that. Through the items that have been to council, probably most notably in February, the bundle of ones that came up at the same time, we've had a chance to test them both in our negotiations with the tenants and also in how council reacts to them and council members' feelings on them. So those will be the two things. We'll be reflecting the discussion with tenants and the discussion that feedback from council members we've received, and trying to come up with principles in the document, which will probably be much the way we've recommended terms in those lease reports. So for instance, that if it's a ground lease, a tenant develops their site, they get their approvals, they maintain their site. At the end of the time, they've got to show that the building's still okay, and we probably have the right to elect whether we get it back or whether we get the site cleaned up. I think that will probably be the scope, but as part of that tidy up, more than happy to make that available on the hub as the old document and the new document, just to show what's actually been done.
So for all of the insomniacs that can't quite get to sleep, that'll be available for you, councillors. Excellent. So on this item, councillors, are there any, and again, just speakers for, speakers against? There are nil. So Councillor Rowe, yep. Councillor Rowe has closed debate. Councillors, if I could ask you to cast your votes, please. I declare that carried unanimously, councillors. We then move on to item 9, motions on notice. Councillor Wright, you have a motion on notice this evening. Do you have a seconder for the motion?
Yes, Councillor James Rowe.
Councillor Rowe, you're happy to second this, councillor? Thank you. Councillor Wright.
All right, thank you. Bear with me. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As the youngest elected member on council, I feel it is my duty to also hold my council accountable for taking action on climate change at a localised level and ensuring we are actually having an impact. Whilst I was at the ALGA conference in Canberra, I discovered the city's power partnership, one of the exhibitors I had a chat with, to see what they were doing and what they were about. The city's power partnership is Australia's largest network of local councils, leading the way to a thriving zero-emissions future with over 170 local government areas signed up and currently represent 65% of the Australian population. Since the last elections, our council has now even a greater focus on intergenerational equity, with the addition of 2 young councillors being myself and Councillor Rowe. We feel it is our duty to make sure young people are heard and that our topics of interest like climate change are being discussed at a local level. This involves collaborating with other local governments and thinking outside the box. In WA, there are 30 councils signed up to this, including the City of Stirling, Swan, Gosnells, Coburn, Armidale and many other larger growth councils. The partnership will not cost the city anything to join and is another accountability measure of tracking our progress towards 5 pledges. Members have 6 months to select 5 key actions, which are actually in the recommendation, covering different topics such as renewable energy, efficiency, transport and many other categories. The City and Council will gain access to their Knowledge Hub, monthly webinars, reporting tools, networking events, expert training, newsletters and regular media and advocacy work. Like I said before, this doesn't cost the City any membership fees. Members will have to report on progress on their 5 pledge items through an annual survey which takes approximately 3 hours to complete per year and is in accordance with the Climate Council standards. The benefits are huge, creating a single platform about what the city is doing to tackle climate change. At the moment, we have many different strategies and policies like urban forest, which is pending, coastal management, climate change, waste plan, waterwise action plan. However, when ratepayers ask me what we are trying to do to achieve this, it is very blurry. Joining this partnership will help our city work on 5 specific pledges and actually hold the city accountable in achieving these and measuring the success every year and the savings from each one. The future of local government involves sharing knowledge, fostering collaboration and accelerating climate initiatives and celebrating these successes as a community, as I think the partnership will do this for the city. In summary, councillors, this partnership will actually measure the success and implementation of the community's vision around climate change and actually help us bundle all our strategies into a single platform working towards specific goals. It will improve intergenerational equity, leaving our local government better for future generations, but also improve the overall efficiency of our organisation. As global events continue to unfold, we need to be smarter in how we do things in local government as fuel prices have soared and electricity continues to go up. We need to do our part in tackling emissions, but also finding cost savings and becoming more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Just for the record, I don't think anyone's got the capacity to keep you quiet. Councillor Rowe.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I don't know if I'm still called a young councillor. I think I've got 1 year left before I actually lose my title of youth, and then I become adult. So there you go. I think it's something that is relevant given the questions that we received from a young member of the public a couple of weeks ago asking what the city was doing in terms of taking a proactive approach on climate change. It was wonderful to see him come all the way to council to express those views, and also the responses that were provided. As a young councillor, we certainly have a responsibility to take a proactive approach, but I think every councillor, irrespective of their age, has that same responsibility because they have children and grandchildren who are living in the city, and they want to make sure that they and their future generations have that safe and wonderful future. And the best way to do that is by taking an active approach. And I think Councillor Wright's motion definitely gets us on that journey, in addition to some of the work the city's already doing. Just a couple of points from me. It's proactive and it's contemporary, and it formalises an existing commitment that the city already has, which is a good thing to see. There's no direct budgetary impact from this motion on notice. I do acknowledge administration's comment about there being an additional administrative role to it, but administration has acknowledged that it won't have a direct financial impact. It's in line with all of the environmental strategies that we've already agreed to, and it will allow a collaboration and hopefully more work with other councils, not just our neighbouring ones in terms of proximity, but also some councils all around the country that are in a similar position in terms of growth and how they're balancing the industrial side of their council as well as the responsibility for coastal management and for urban forestry as well. So very happy to support the motion on notice as is.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor speakers for. Councillor Parker.
I feel I really need to add this. As an older councillor, I'm happy to support this motion as it highlights the city's existing and ongoing commitment to climate change and mitigation and other pillars of the city's strategic program. Importantly, this is at no cost to our ratepayers, and thank you, Councillor Wright, for the motion. I had to add that. Old is good.
Yes. Speakers against. Councillor Aitken, you for? Yeah, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a few comments because my husband and I have been installing solar for about 15 years and we see a CEC accredited, and I have had a passion for renewable energy. And right from when I came onto council in 2013, I spoke with Director Harminder Singh. The first thing I said to him is I wanted LED lighting to save the electricity costs in the City of Wanneroo. And we're still fighting for that. We've been fighting for it. This group might be able to give us some hints on how to get leverage to be able to get LED lighting. That would create a 70% reduction on our electricity bill as well. I do drive an electric vehicle and I am right into renewables, but we also plant 3,600 trees a year. So we're already got the processes in place. The national data and national support to benchmark with would be good with this. I like it. I support the motion and ask that my fellow councillors support it as well. And by the way, I've been doing this for years, mate. It's not something new that's just come on the planet, okay? So I just thought I'd share that with you. Bye.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Speakers against? Speakers for. Councillor Civic.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to sort of say that I was born in the last ice age, so... I'm just watching the human beings, seeing what they're doing to this planet in all the time. But I kindly would like Councillor Wright to refer to me as Grandpa, so that's okay. But no, in defence of Councillor Wright's motion on notice, look, I think it's worthy in terms of awareness. I think it's a good thing to bring it forward to make sure that we're looking at all and ticking in all the boxes to do with the environment and all of those, all the things that we require to have a good life. But I think overall, I think the city is proactive there, but the involvement with other local governments who have the same sort of thing in mind, I think can only be beneficial, that we can work collaboratively between all councils to make sure that climate change is kept in tow. So, yeah, I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Savitton. Speakers against, speakers for. Councillor Sangali.
Pressing the wrong button. I'm happy to support this. Like has been pointed out, most of this we are already doing. I am a little bit disappointed there's nothing about coastal in the whole recommendation here, you know, considering one of the biggest climate change issues that affects the City of Wanneroo is coastal erosion. You know, we had a whole gallery here full of not so young people that are all very much aware of coastal erosion and therefore climate change. So yes, while it is in the hands of the youth to definitely champion this, I think we are all very much aware of it. And, you know, the majority of us will always support making our area a much better place to live and do the right thing by the environment.
Thank you, Councillor Sangali. Speakers against? Speakers for. Councillor Miles.
Just a brief one. I too have been very supportive of our city making a lot of the climate change declarations as we did with Walga, obviously to try and get a bit more green energy where we can, especially be in those areas of buildings that are contestable. We are obviously constrained in regard to that. We have been trialling for multiple years fleet vehicles which are electric or hybrid or total electric and have invested heavily in that area. To join the CPP, I'm happy to join it. As Councillor Wright stated, it is a free to join, but unfortunately sometimes free to join means you pay later in some other way. So I would be very careful on that, because our community are already saying to us, this city belongs to too many outside organisations, so we have to be careful on that cost basis. The 5 pledges or the 5 items that Councillor Wright's asking us to be a part of are fine in their recommendation. As I say, the administration's comment covers off on all of those. I guess where I think Councillor Wright, we need to do better as a council is probably have a singular page on our website which articulates what our CO2 emissions are, where we are capping those and where we are failing, and we do need to have those charts, and hopefully the CPP do have some tools that administration can use. I do note, Deputy Mayor, that this program is going to come under the department is a planning issue. I see up the top, Director of Planning and Sustainability is going to be the action officer. So I don't know whether he's going to make any comments with regard to this, but happy to support the recommendations Councillor Wright's asking for.
Thank you, Councillor Miles, and I suspect the good Director D will over time make some commentary about this. Speakers against? Speakers for. Councillors, I'm just going to make a couple of very, very quick points. The antithesis of youth is age, of course, but with that comes wisdom. And over the years, you do manage to accumulate that. But this is a continual learning environment, and there's always new and better ways of doing things. And I think this council's got a very proud record of doing exactly that, listening and learning. I think Councillor Rowe made a very valid point with very similar councils right across Australia. We're part of the National Growth Areas Alliance, and we align with many of these issues right across Australia, and we advocate nationally on those. And in that forum, this council's been a leading voice and remains to. So this is something that I think will also add to that voice as well. So with that, certainly, Councillor Wright, I'm very happy to support that. I note that we do have a range and raft of strategies and outcomes that we are pursuing, but I think this is a good approach. So, Councillor Wright, if you'd like to close debate.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I thank all the councillors for their input tonight, and I knew I'd get a bit of flack about the youth comment. But no, I'm very proud to be part of a council where, you know, and coming back from Canberra and seeing what the national councils look like around the country, and to see that we are so diverse in who we are as a council, and to be able to have different experiences and skill sets that we bring to the table, I think is a fantastic thing, and that we all work well together. We all are similar-minded in terms of wanting to do better for our future generations, and I think that's something that we should be proud of. And also a pat on the back for administration as well for the work they do around climate change, because unfortunately these things are not physically seen right now, but I know they will certainly add up as the years go on. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. And with that, Councillor Wright has closed debate. So, councillors, if I could ask you to please cast your votes. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Well done, Councillor Wright. With that, councillors, we move on to item 10, urgent business. There is nil. We also then move to item 11, which is confidential. Councillors, we do have one confidential item on tonight's agenda. So if I could ask for, Councillor Miles, you're moving to go behind closed doors. Councillor Civic is seconding.
No, you got to record it. You put reasoning front category.
Not yet, no. Not yet coming up. Get ready to vote. Honestly, the girl from Ipanema would be good to play right about now.
Say the words again. Abracadabra. Open the doors.
Thank you, councillors. Let's just, thank you. I declare that carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. With regard to confidential item CR 01-0722, the Chief Executive Officer Annual Performance Review Engagement of Consultant, and that was moved, Deputy Mayor Treby, seconded by Councillor Rowe. The recommendation was that Council 1 authorises the Deputy Mayor to write to the Chief Executive Officer and provide him with notice that the performance review is to be conducted, and 2, requests that the Director Corporate Strategy and Performance, or in the alternative, the Executive Manager of Governance and Legal, to engage the services of a suitable independent facilitator to assist Council to conduct the annual performance review of the Chief Executive Officer, Mr Daniel Sims, for the 2021-2022 review period. And that was passed unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We then move on to item 12. Date of the next meeting, which will be a briefing session, will be held on Tuesday, the 2nd of August 2022 at 6 p.m. Item 13, closure, and I declare the council meeting closed at 9:57 p.m. 8:57, make that.